Hello and welcome to The Entrepreneurial Musician, a coaching service, podcast, and blog preparing today's musicians for tomorrow's realities. This is TEM232 titled Don't Focus on Growth. Thank you to Parker Mouthpieces for providing the hosting for TEM. Parker Mouthpieces offers fine, customizable component mouthpieces for horn, trombone, euphonium, and tuba, including the Andrew Hitz Artist Model Tuba Mouthpiece. You can find out more at parkermouthpieces.com or follow them on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So it's been a month since you heard from me. It's been a big month. I've gotten both vaccinations, and I'm almost at my 2 weeks after the second shot, which I'm very excited about. I visited my parents. More importantly, my son visited his grandparents for the first time in a very, very long time. Was able to help them with some stuff up in Boston. I completely relaunched Hits Academy. I played an actual gig. It's been an insanely productive month. I just haven't been focused on TEM, but I'm back. I've been giving a shout out at the beginning of each episode, and I'm going to do that again here, but this one's a little bit different. They have been to a specific musician doing something creative, and this shout out is actually to the entire city of New Orleans, and let me explain. A couple of days ago was the 25th anniversary of my first ever trip to the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival. And that was a trip that changed me as a musician, as a creative, and as a human. The first day that I fell in love with the city of New Orleans, and the first time that I went to the fairgrounds for the Jazz and Heritage Festival, I was told to stop by the gospel tent, and I went in there and my jaw hit the floor. I had never experienced anything like it. I sat in there for like an hour. I couldn't leave. I was mesmerized. I saw Lionel Hampton. This was the very end of his life. It took him almost a full 5 minutes to be walked from the backstage out to his marimba with the help of two people on either side of him. And once he got out there, he raised both hands in the air with his four mallets, and the jazz tent went berserk. I was sitting on the ground, like right in front of him. Like I was in front of the front row. That's how packed it was. And then he just started like shredding, like he was 25 years old, like just mere feet away from a legend. Saw Michael Ray in the Cosmic Cruise show that started at like midnight. I mean, like after. One of the beautiful things about Jazz Fest is that all of the musicians end up sitting in with one another after. It reprogrammed my musical DNA. And New Orleans is one of, I think, the 10 most original, most charismatic cities in the entire world. And there's a lot of cities I haven't been to, but I've been to an awful lot of cities. It's a remarkable place in a world that just keeps getting more homogenized at all times. New Orleans is just a treasure. And a specific shout out to Tony Garcia, who was my jazz improv teacher at Northwestern at the time. And he not only let me miss class, but he sat me down as a New Orleans native, and he actually circled all of the things that I needed to see at Jazz Fest. If you're not familiar with it, there can be like a dozen things happening at one time in terms of performances at the fairgrounds. It's huge. And he helped to steer the ship. So a shout out to New Orleans. My late great mentor Sam Palafian once said that every musician needs to find an excuse to live in New Orleans at some point in their life. And I've never done that, but I have visited many, many times, and I will be back. All right, TEM 232, don't focus on growth. I've had lots of ideas over the years, some good ones and some that I thought were really good, but the rest of the world didn't agree. I think I've stumbled on another good one. It's called Inside the Practice Room. And this is a series of events, live events, where the best musicians in the world invite us inside of their practice rooms to show us how they do the daily work that has made them some of the best musicians in the world. You can learn more about this series at hitsacademy.com. But my first guest was Jeff Nelson of Canadian Brass, who's one of the best horn players in the world. He teaches at Indiana University. He's also an entrepreneur. I actually need to have him on this podcast. He's appeared on Brass Junkies events for us, and he has appeared on the Brass Junkies. He's amazing. But this was a quote from his Inside the Practice Room session, which is about shedding in the practice room, but it totally applies to every aspect of my portfolio career today, which is why I immediately thought about sharing it with my TEM audience. Here's Jeff, quote, I'm in the practice room to do 25 minutes of good work, and that's it. Side note, he was talking about using a Pomodoro timer, which I have actually used since. It's been really wonderful and has helped me focus. Anyway, that's what he was referring to with 25 minutes. I'm in the practice room to do 25 minutes of good work, and that's it. I don't look for growth that much. I look for good versions and I look for learning. But the growth is a result that I just trust is going to happen. I just do it day after day. That's a really good way for me to deal with frustration in the practice room. If I don't see results, that doesn't mean they're not happening. I'm just doing the work. So, what a wonderful quote. I think it's natural to want to see growth as soon as we start putting a lot of work into something, or once we've been putting in work for a long time. But when I start looking for growth too soon, or just when it's not there, when that's not the best thing to do, it's just energy that I'm not putting into showing up and continuing to do the work day after day. I've never shown up in an intentional way day after day and not grown something. That goes for playing, that goes for business ventures, that goes for relationships, that goes for literally everything. It doesn't mean that everything works out, but there is growth. And sometimes that growth is just moving towards having an unemotional and informed decision that this is not the best relationship or program or business venture at this time. But if I'm having a bad day in the practice room, or an event isn't selling out of the gate as well as I think it should be, or I'm having a down month for TEM coaching clients, then I can occasionally run with that negative data point and spin a narrative in my head. And again, that's just energy that's not going into making the thing better. What's most important for me is to continue to show up and do the work and evaluate how things are going, again, in a completely unemotional way. Sometimes something isn't going well because it's not a good idea, but frequently it's just the ups and downs of being an entrepreneur. And I can't waste energy every time I have a down week or an event doesn't sell as well as the last one. And growth is always the byproduct of continuing to show up. I just have to remind myself of that from time to time and have faith in the process. So, thank you very much to Jeff. That has fundamentally changed me as a practicer in the last week since that event. And I actually just tweeted tonight that this is the first time that I've had back to back to back super focused practice days in forever, and it feels really great, and it was largely because of that event. So thank you, Jeff. So I've also been ending episodes with a quote, and I'm going to do that again right now. This one is from Brene Brown, who's amazing. And Brene said, I'm not that creative is a profoundly dangerous myth. The only unique contribution that we will ever make in this world will be born of our creativity. We are makers. Seth Godin likes to say that creativity is not a trait, it's a muscle. And I know from personal experience that when I'm brainstorming a lot and iterating and shipping, that I always feel creative, even when some of my stuff sucks. And when I'm not doing much of any of those things, I almost never feel creative. And so there's a direct correlation between my actions and how I feel, which is exactly what Brene Brown was getting at with that awesome quote. Thank you to everyone for listening, subscribing, leaving a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get TEM, and simply for your attention, the most valuable commodity any of us have to give. And also, as a side note, going off script, thank you for your patience with TEM not happening as regularly as it used to, and I believe it will again. TEM is produced by myself and Will Houchin and is a part of the Pedal Note Media Podcast Network. The theme music for TEM is played by Ben Barron, Rich Kelly, Daniel Lapel, and myself, Andrew Hitz. For show notes, the TEM blog, and to learn more about TEM coaching, please visit our new website, tem.fm. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and please subscribe to our brand new YouTube channel. And that's going to do it for another episode of The Entrepreneurial Musician.